because I'll forget otherwise. Fantastic.
Feed will go on live. Have a great show.
All right, thank you.
Welcome to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. Whether you feel that you don't have enough money to start investing or are under the preconceived notion that investing is only for the wealthy, Magnus and his expert guests are here to help you. Now here is your host, Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Yeah, we're already almost halfway through June already. Last week was another fantastic show, if you will. I did about graduation. For anybody out there that's graduating or knows somebody that's graduating, definitely check it out. Some tips and tricks for the upcoming seasons in your life. But today is definitely going to be a topic that's very interesting to a lot of people because people rely on this beverage, if you will, religiously and have to drink it all the time to actually want either feel better or actually use it to get through the day. And today's show is all about coffee. And I have the founder and president of Mayorga Organics in the uh, which is Martin Mayorga. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Uh, you know, Coffee is basically life to everybody. It's pretty much a lifeline for anybody out there that's working or in the adult realm, and actually starting to flow into the teenagers and some pre-adolescents as well, because of the great some of the things that the caffeine and the coffee can do for us. But before we get into all that fun stuff, can you give us a little bit about your history and how you actually got into the coffee business?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Guatemala, and then I grew up in Nicaragua. When I was there, a revolution kind of kicked off, and we ended up having to leave Nicaragua very abruptly and came here to Costa Rica, which is where I am right now, for about a year. From there, we went to Peru, where we have family, and inevitably went into the US as refugees of the Nicaraguan Revolution, where we spent some time in Miami and then eventually went up to the DC area. So I was very much a Latin American kid. I didn't really speak any English till I was 10, 11. And I very quickly became Americanized. I had to fit in. It was a tough age to be somebody that stood out, especially in the 80s, which people weren't as accepting as they are today. So, learning English and becoming an American kid was top priority. So I did that. I became, typical American kid. I played baseball. I ended up, going to college in the DC area. And I then started going back to Nicaragua with my dad in 1991 after the first democratic election since the revolution. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. This whole new life that I had kind of created in the US was one thing, but the reality of who I was still in Nicaragua and with those memories and the things that I had experienced and learned in Nicaragua, in Guatemala and Peru. I just felt a lot of responsibility. Okay. So I really started to kind of ask myself, what can I do to be more engaged with the countries that really made me who I am? And in college, I was studying finance. I was ready to graduate, and I decided, no, I'm going to just go do my own thing. And I actually started a cigar business.
Ooh, okay.
I had been going to the north of Nicaragua with my dad since I was little. And that's where we, my dad would buy cigars, and so I knew all the Cuban families from those days. So it was kind of a good entryway. And while I was in the cigar business, I spent time in the mountains too, because the tobacco grows in the valley and all the coffee's up in the mountains. And talking to a family friend, he just explained to me how he had gotten his farm back after the revolution, and the lands were given back, but he was going to have to shut it down because he couldn't make money. And basically, the only reason he couldn't make money was because the supply chain was so bloated in the middle, where he had no access even to the buyers in his country. So I said, when you're your 20s and naive, you think, well, we'll just figure it out. An industry that has been operating a certain way for 200 years, we'll do it differently. And frankly, we did. I said, send me a container of coffee, which is about 40,000 pounds. Whatever difference we make, that you would have over what you'd have made, we split that. I paid my student loans because I had about 150 grand in student loans by the time I graduated. And I really realized it was pretty easy to kind of do the right thing, get into an interesting industry. And I started selling green coffee to roasters, so unroasted raw coffee. And keep in mind, this is the mid 90s, so there weren't that many coffee roasters, right? I mean, Starbucks was kind of the only kind of shiny new object. And there was a couple up and coming, but then I realized I needed to start roasting because there weren't enough roasters. And frankly, most of them didn't care to deal with somebody importing coffee. They wanted to buy it out of New York because it was safer. So then I started the trajectory into roasting and, developing it to where it is now.
Okay. Well, as the process of coffee kind of eludes a lot of us out there, we just like the finished product and just drink lots of it. We
Right.
just like to put the water in it, or go to, like you said, a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, or another, even McDonald's. McDonald's is known for their coffee, as even as a fast food place. What are some of the steps that you actually had? So you actually, when you started this business, you actually had to get a process. You've actually noticed that there's different processes of coffee as a whole. But how far into the process did you take your business?
I mean, at this point, we're all into everything except being a farmer.
Okay.
So, I call him my uncle, but he was a family friend. I mean, he drew out the kind of supply chain. And the first part is a lot of farmers can pick the red cherry, which is basically the seed is inside a red cherry, but they don't have the machinery to pulp it, to take the seed out of the cherry. So their best bet is just to sell the red cherry. And a lot of them don't have trucks or the wherewithal to find a buyer. So then a coyote, a middleman, will come and buy it literally street side from you. So I saw a lot of inefficiency just from day one, right?
Right.
What if we then help farmers get the depulper? What if we help farmers then align with mills through relationships from a buyer? And that's what we do now, right? We engage with the farmers all the way into our facility, and we manage everything from pre-harvest, helping them get financing, which is probably the most critical thing we do, and then bring the product on container ships through the Port of Baltimore to our facility.
Okay. Wow. So out of all these farms that you're working with, how many farms are you actually working with in those countries?
It's
Just a
actually
ballpark.
between 6,000 and 10,000 farmers, because I like to focus on cooperatives, because
Okay.
cooperatives tend to be made up of very small, impoverished, indigenous individuals and communities who typically are more susceptible to any type of manipulation. So we focused on co-ops, and some co-ops can have 3,000 members. So
Wow.
we've done kind of a traceability to figure out where we specifically touch, and it depends on the year and the types of coffees, but minimum 6,000, upwards of 10,000 farmers.
Wow. That's crazy. And out of all, coffee plants and that have to have like huge areas. How big of an area are you talking here? Are you talking like mountainsides of coffee plants?
Oh yeah, entire mountains. I mean, to produce a container of coffee, depending on the area, I mean, you might need anywhere between 50 and 70 acres, depending on your output. So coffee takes a lot of land. Coffee takes a lot of land. Luckily it's been there for generations, so there's no deforestation at this point. If anything, we promote planting more for shade, etc. So yeah, it's pretty vast. It's a pretty vast use of land, and it's critical in Latin America, which is where we work exclusively.
Okay.
It's part of GDP for a lot of these countries.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. As we're talking, especially we're talking mountainsides and whatnot, how do you differentiate which kind of coffee comes from what type of plant, or which region would be, I guess, a better terminal, a better
There's
breakdown?
so many variables. Region, like you said, elevation,
Okay.
the initial plant that they plant. There's a tremendous amount of varieties nowadays. Some are strictly for cup profiles, some are for resistance to certain diseases, some are for more abundance of volume. And really that's where the agronomy takes place, to really work with producers, and they work with the agronomists to make sure that they're planting the right balance of quality, good output, resistance to disease. and it can be anywhere between 4 varieties on one farm to 15, 20 on another one.
Wow. And you said that you're constantly replanting. So what is the lifespan of a coffee plant or coffee tree?
Well,
There is.
typically you want to really kind of replant every 10 years. You know, a
Okay.
coffee plant can last 20, 30 years. Its productivity goes down.
Okay.
So we help our producers typically have a strategy where 5 to 10% of the farm every year is being renovated. It's tricky because then it takes about 3 years for that new planting to actually become export
Mhm.
level. So it's an investment, and it takes some patience.
Okay. Okay. Now, the plants that you take out of production, how do you use them? Do they just go onto a pile, or do you sell them to someone else for possibly like livestock feed or something? Or is it just disregarded?
Well, what's interesting is the wood nowadays, it's great for barbecuing and stuff. So actually I was at a friend's house this weekend, and he had a really, really nice Argentinian grill where
Okay.
you hang the vegetables on top and the meat in the middle, and all he was using was coffee wood. And we're seeing a lot more of that. It's too small to really build much with, because it's maybe 2, 3 inches in diameter.
Mhm.
So the wood you get to see used a lot. And then the leaves just get typically put into the compost, most of our producers, because we only work organic. So we
Okay.
only work no chemical organic production. So most of our producers will have a compost system, and they'll just, whatever is organic material, they'll compost in there.
Now, have you seen, since you're in the coffee industry and you've seen organic versus non-organic, is there that big of a difference in taste and quality?
There is, but I would make the very strong argument that it's less about taste and quality and
Okay.
more about the amount of chemicals used in coffee is absurd. I mean, obviously, I think you're going to have a better, slower development of the bean, which typically develops more sugars and more flavors. So I do think there's generally better flavor. To me, the bigger reality is, especially nowadays when everybody talks about, caring for the environment, caring for producers, it's just, when you see it, it's sad to see people. And you have to remember, a lot of these small, poor farmers live on their land that they farm. And moreover, coffee farms are on the top of a mountain. So what happens when it rains? It goes into the rivers, which go into the sea. And so there's a sense of responsibility as well. And there's
Yeah.
a sense of, our choices create impacts. And to some people, unfortunately, even in my own industry, those places are far away, right? The impact is in another country I don't need to worry about. For me, being from these countries, I have a sense of responsibility to do what's right for the communities and the countries that we get coffee from. And frankly, you see the difference. I mean, you go to a conventional coffee farm and the soil looks like sand. It basically is just a holder of roots, and then you have to feed those roots through chemicals and whatever else.
Yeah.
If you go to an organic farm, it's just rich in black soil and moist and humid, and you have like a little layer of leaves on top. So it is a big difference. And and even if you don't believe in all that, if you believe in supply chain consistency, if you want
Right.
coffee in the future, it's got to be able to grow. So that's a big aspect for us too.
Okay. All right. That's definitely good to know, because a lot of people, what chocolate and whatnot. And I'm going to relate to coffee, because I'm not a coffee fan. I just don't drink caffeine. That's just me. But it's definitely interesting to find out how this actually takes place, and the business end behind it, because not a lot of people understand why it is so expensive for coffee nowadays, especially with I guess we can call them boutique coffees, would be the proper term, I guess.
Yeah, I think two things have happened. Number one, we go into these 10 to 12-year commodity super cycles, and coffee is the number 2 traded commodity in the world. So the base of commercial coffee kind of sets the floor of pricing for all coffee. So the commercial grade coffee, if it goes up, so will the super high-end specialty stuff, because now there's a new floor that everybody's comparing against. Whether people want to believe in the specialty world that they're not buying against the commodities market, they all are, because farmers look at that price as if I was getting $2.50 for this really nice coffee when the market was $1.20, well, the market's at $2.50 now. I should get $4.50, $5. So
Mhm.
everybody's subject to it, whether they'd like to accept it or not. Number two, I think there's just been a proliferation of very small, boutique-y, overly, excited roasters that think a nice story equals a high price.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of consumers maybe think, well, if it's expensive, it must be good. And it's just been this thing that's really happened over the last 8 to 9 years with cheap money, easy money, and just, you go to a nice shop and it looks like an Apple store, and but it's starting to kind of lose its wind at this point.
Okay. Uh, Honestly, because when I did try coffee for a very short time, I did drink coffee. Um, I was actually out in Washington, city of Washington, and everybody bragged about Starbucks because I never drank about it. And the first time I drank Starbucks coffee was there because that's what that's where they're from and that's what they did. Is I thought it was burnt. I honestly thought they did something wrong to the coffee that it made you get that burn taste, that like charcoal burn wood taste out of it. But but then again, I drank really cheap coffee, like even instant coffee or something, and it tasted 10 times better. So that I guess it's all about personal preference on that aspect.
I mean, that's the biggest reality of the industry that I think too many people in this industry don't even understand, which is, this new movement that I mentioned with the hyper specialty. It's
Right.
almost been this mentality of, we're going to tell you what's good. And the truth is, you have to respect consumers enough to say, well, what do you like? Let me meet you close to where you are. And gradually, if I think, I can provide you better value, better taste, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
walk you through there over time. And I think what's happened is, there's almost a disrespect to the consumer, in my opinion, with, well, you drink this junk, you should be drinking this. And
Uh,
it's kind of insulting to the consumer. Where if you like instant coffee, great, that's what you like.
mm,
Now, if it was up to me to get that market, I would make a better instant coffee that's more sustainably sourced, that treats farmers better. But there's no good or bad, in my opinion. I think
okay.
that's been the problem in this industry. Now, for me as a personal preference, yeah, there's coffees I like better than others, and some that I don't touch. But I think as a company, there's got to be a little humility in that process of, uh, you know, I think our coffee is the best, but it's not just about taste. It's about a very well-rounded set of variables.
Okay. Well, that's a great segue into uh how do you how do you differ yourself besides the organics and whatnot? How do you differentiate yourself in the market? Uh because there is it's very limited market, but uh there's big names in it, I should say.
Yeah, ultimately, I think we've been true to who we are since we started.
Okay.
Since I was a college kid in the mid-90s. I've been very vocal about, A, I want to support farmers in Latin America. B, I want to support the Latin American community and represent us in a positive way, because I think we're missing that in the media and in society as a whole. And B, we're just consistently looking for the best way to deliver value. I think there's this premise again that, expensive is good, and our goal is to deliver very good coffee and be fair to the consumer. The premise of fair trade is always thrown about in coffee, about being fair to the farmer, but nobody talks about being fair to the consumer. And I think there's a lot of unfairness for the
Hmm.
consumer right now that people don't talk about. So I think being true to who we are, and being, if people follow me on LinkedIn, they'll see I'm very honest. I say things that other people get upset about. I was at a coffee trade show about 2 months ago, and literally people pulled me aside and said, some of the things you say are very, could hurt the industry. That's fine if it hurts the industry, but it's good for society and for consumers and for farmers. Maybe it's okay. So I think having that knowledge of who you are and carrying it everywhere you go is very important, and that permeates through the brand.
That's great because one of the major things about the show is I've done quite a few shows about branding and personal branding, and the brand is who you are, and
Right.
emanating the brand into all that you do is just good character. And that's what I tell a lot of, that's what came across from the multiple people that I've talked to, and you're just another instance of it in a different industry. And you can tell the people that you offend or think they think that they're better than when they come to you and bring that discussion to you.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think, it's unfortunate because we do live in an era right now where you can't be in the middle of the spectrum. So you do have to push one edge or the other, right? So that's unfortunate because it's not really who I am. But I think fortunately for me, and unfortunately in a lot of ways, is being a proud Latino has rubbed people the wrong way, and I think, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, then we have to do more of that because I'm not hurting anybody. We're not taking anything away from anybody. We just are very proud of who we are. And more importantly, I want the kid who immigrated here, with his parents who don't speak any English, who went through what I went through, to be like, hey, there's other people doing things beyond the low expectations that have been put on us by society. Here's an example. Our Latinos brew it better. Little things like
I
that.
love it.
And it's a tongue-in-cheek thing, and some people get bothered by it, but I think it's important to be proud of who you are. And I think maybe I have a chip on my shoulder because, like I said, as a kid, having to assimilate, I had to absorb a lot of who I was. And that moment when it all hit me again in Nicaragua in 91, I realized the power of that. And frankly, I think my success is driven maybe by three top things, but one of the top ones is staying true to who I am.
Okay.
That has been a critical part of my success. And I think the respect that we've gotten as a company through the industry.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. Honestly, when I used to travel and whatnot, I went to when I traveled, especially out of country, I want to experience what your country has, like your
Right.
foods, your environment, your culture, dancing, music, all that stuff. I don't want to go to a McDonald's or a Dunkin' Donuts. If you're known for your coffee or whatever, or teas or food or whatnot, I want to I want to experience that. I can get McDonald's food and fast food anywhere in the world, and that's one thing that I will say America does very well is they will bring what they want with them, and
Right.
I'm not a fan of that. I would rather like you do with the farmers and whatnot. I'd rather support the local mom and pop shops because I want to know what makes them special and what.
Yeah, what's funny is one of the things I think is kind of converse of what you're saying is I want to bring a new perspective of Latinos to the US. We're not all yard workers, we're not all criminals. Some of the words and I did a presentation and I did headlines of the way Latinos are referred to, and it's terrible. It's all negative, it's all kind of, to put us down. And my whole thing is I want the opposite. I want to bring you the best of our countries.
Yes.
We even have a section on our site called Orgullo Latino, and we do articles about the best food from our countries, the best, the music, the artists, the companies, to show you the good stuff. And every community and every culture has good and bad.
Right.
I just want to be a conduit for the good.
Oh, I agree. And honestly, I thought it was a coincidence or not, but I actually seen the Flamin' Hot documentary the other night with the
Yeah.
Cheetos and what PepsiCo did with the Cheetos and how that man brought spice into our life into snack foods, and you're just doing the same thing in the coffee industry.
Yeah, again, it's authenticity, right? And you
Yeah.
forget, there's a lot of Latinos in the US.
Yes,
So
yes, there
if
are.
he liked spicy, maybe other people like spicy. And sure
Right.
enough, they did. And he turned that company, that division around for Pepsi. So I think it's also to talk into the power of the Latino presence and influence in the United States.
No, I agree. I live in a very it's a more diverse area now, and there's a lot of good people that I associate with are, and I'm learning how how they cook, their spices and whatnot, like we're talking about, and to see everything that's melt and the way they make things their own, and you can definitely tell by the music, it's uh very upbeat, I'll
Yeah.
say.
And the beauty is they're also different. You would think, we all kind of get lumped behind the Mexicans because there's a lot of Mexicans in the US, but
Right.
we're also different. So we all have different music and different foods and different, rice and beans can be one thing for Cubans, another thing for Nicaraguans, another
Right.
thing for, even the names and the way it's prepared. And so something very basic can also be very differentiated between country. And I think showing those nuances is also part of what we like to do. And, sometimes we push the specific countries and, show the difference between each country and the cultural aspect as well.
Oh yes, and after looking at your website and whatnot, you can definitely sense the culture that you put into all that you work on and what you're bringing out, and especially the gourmet coffees and the way you're helping people. But Martin, we actually are halfway through the show. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get some words in from the station, and what we're going to do is we're going to come back, and I want to get more into some of your personal sides of how you got into this more. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is the Making More Money for You show. I'm definitely here with Martin Mayorga. We're talking about coffee and how he's actually revolutionizing the coffee industry in Latin America and bringing it to the world. So sit back. If you're tuning in, hold on a second. If you're still with us, go grab a drink or something, maybe a coffee, maybe some water, and we'll be right back.
All clear. Back in about 2 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Wow,
No,
that's
right.
time goes by fast.
Yeah, it does. It's funny, the lights went out earlier because, in Costa Rica, there's a huge storm right now, but apparently there was a time around those lights, so we're good.
Okay, because I'm like, oh, did the power go out? Did the internet go out? That was like one of my first things. I'm like,
Yeah, especially here there's some massive storms right now these days. So
okay, well, at least some part of the world is getting, some part of the earth is getting rain. We had a little bit of rain last night. We're in a drought in the Northeast.
where are you? What area?
I'm actually in Pennsylvania,
Okay,
Northeast.
you're near our facility. I mean, our facility is in Maryland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not too far. It's about 2.5, 3 hours away, depending on where at.
We're in Rockville,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Maryland.
nice. Okay, I didn't realize you were that close, because that's
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I spent most of my kind of formative years, and moved away in 2014, 15, started a facility in Miami and shut that down, and now I'm here. I split my time between here in Maryland.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's definitely different worlds, if you will. You get the
Yeah, it's also convenient because I'm pretty central to all my farms and all the countries we work with, so that's a big part of it for me.
well, that helps. That helps out quite a bit. Like, you have your own little command center set up, and you just go wherever you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an hour from Guatemala, a few hours from Bogota. I mean, Medellin, Colombia is like an hour and a half. Everything's super close from here.
All right, we're coming back in about 30
Oh,
seconds, sending you to the feed. Have a great next segment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show, or welcome to the show if you're just tuning in. We are talking about a substance that a lot of us around the world use daily, and sometimes multiple times a day. We're actually talking about coffee, the coffee industry, what it takes to actually get the raw product and getting it to your house. I have Martin Mayorga here from Mayorga uh, Organics.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
problem.
Martin, welcome back to the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, absolutely. We covered quite a bit why you got into it, where you're located at, which is in the central city, basically central Latin America. So about your farms and whatnot, and you have quite a few farms. I'm not gonna lie, and you help hundreds of thousands of people. We can honestly say we're in about that.
Yeah, over time, definitely. For
Okay.
sure.
And we did talk about how you got back into your home country, but what made coffee stand out besides the farmers and whatnot? Instead, in that area of the world, there's need for everywhere, but what made coffee stand out more to you than like maybe cattle or something else? Tobacco industries in there as well, or cigars. What made coffee stand out more to you?
I was in cigars, and cigar manufacturers do very well.
Yeah.
I think what hit me with coffee was I saw it and really learned it. When I left college and I lived in the cigar factory, and I would go spend time at different farms. I've always loved agriculture, And seeing the duality and the difference between the people who grow the coffee and the people who drink it was like just being on like a, I don't know, it was just two different complete, realities. So you see someone who barely makes enough to feed their family and who has to do anything possible just to stay alive. And the people drinking the product that these very same people are growing are dropping, $5, $6 back then was a big deal.
That's a huge deal. That's like 10,
Uh,
$11 now.
yeah. And I thought, man, this is crazy because someone's making all this money. A pound of coffee will make 40 cups of coffee. And the math just didn't work out. And I thought, there's an opportunity to make a change here. And most people I knew in the coffee world were either wealthy estate owners who, frankly, some of them were part of the problem of keeping small producers oppressed, if you will.
Okay.
And most were just very poor, trying to figure it out. And I kind of felt, it sounds corny to say calling, but I did feel like, you know what, I need to figure this out because it seems too easy. That was the biggest thing for me. This problem seems too easy to solve, and there's got to be a reason why it's not solved. And frankly, it's still not solved, and it might be worse today. So the reason it's not solved is there's a lot of money in keeping people poor, and people are doing that on purpose. So we try to do the opposite.
Yeah, we can see that basically everywhere out there. Any industry that when you work for somebody, you see that. The salary wage. We can get, that's a whole other show and a half on that, about salaries, wages, benefits, and all that fun stuff. But as we're saying here is the process. It's getting better. But what changes have you made in your processes? I know you began roasting coffee beans as well to get the roasting aspect under control, but what are other things besides trade secrets or anything that you don't have to get into? But what are some ideals that you've changed throughout the years and you see it getting better?
Ultimately, the biggest thing I did that I think very few people do at all in this industry is I had presence in Latin America. I spent the first 10 to 15 years of my work in this industry doing nothing but being in Latin America, learning, understanding, making mistakes, and seeing the realities. I think part of the problem is a lot of people in the industry don't know the realities. So they're out here educating consumers when they're not themselves educated. So I think the biggest thing I did was create presence and hire people in these countries to also be constantly present, to build rapport, because it takes years to build these relationships where a farmer can tell you, you know what, that mill tells me the cost of milling is 36 cents, but I hear it's 18 cents at this one. And all of a sudden you start finding the opportunities to create, change and shifts. And it's not this kind of, easy to promote and market reality, right? The reality is we renegotiated with a mill or we went to another mill. We helped the producer understand how to pick better so that their waste was lower when they submitted the coffee. We guaranteed the contract to the bank so that we could negotiate down their interest rate. I mean, it's all the things that, we had to really develop the understanding and the trust and the relationships. That's everything. And that's what makes us stand out. And that's what's made us grow. And that's what makes us continue to grow every year. Obviously, within that, we've hired great people who are going to help us with the roasting and the cupping and the very technical stuff, which frankly I can do, but that's not my focus. My focus is to understand the totality of my business. And I think we've done that very, very well. So I think that's where we've made the impact. And then it develops to the point where, 2 years ago, there was hurricanes right before Christmas in Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. We were able to deploy, I think, like $40,000, $50,000 within hours because we have partners there. We wire money. They're out there buying food. And the relationship becomes so efficient that now you're dealing with problems, not just on the long term, but on the near time, immediate needs. So that's been critical. The problem is that is not recognized or seen in the industry, but it means a lot to us. And frankly, those who take the time to read our blogs or look at our social, whatever, see it. And we have probably the most loyal fan base in the industry.
Wow, that is very impressive, especially in this industry where you have a lot of heavy hitters that have been in business a lot longer than you have, possibly by decades. And you're getting that turnout. That's impressive and that's amazing. And I can definitely see, why people would entrust their farms and their livelihoods to you to actually help them grow. Now, when you start working with these farmers and they start seeing the benefits of working with you, do they start does the attitude change and they want to do it more and more efficiently with you?
I wish I could tell you it was easy, and like it's not a linear process, right? It's
No,
kind of
no, right.
like a stock market run. It's never like this. There's always dips. So there's always distrust because you have 200 years of distrust. You have 200
Mhm.
years of, I'm going to kind of get one over on you before you get one over on me.
Right.
So there's that. And you have to kind of bite your tongue and kind of drudge through that. And then there's somebody came and made a bigger promise. I'm going to go with them. And you let them do that and find out that that group was not honest. And so you have to really kind of not have pride because
Okay.
you're trying to really break something very systemically ingrained in people. And I think over time, and this is something I preach to my kids and everybody's like, it's just consistency in time. It's those like
Mhm.
micro moments that build upon each other. It's compounding interest. It's just, that's the reality of how we've grown. It's do the right thing every day, take one foot forward every day. And even if your producer sells you out or whatever, you keep showing up, you keep doing your thing. And eventually everybody understands that, wow, these people are for real. And that's who we are to people. And to the point where we have producers approach us from all over. Unfortunately, we can't support them all, but that's our reputation. If we align with you, we will do the right thing for you. And frankly, I'll be honest, we're not going to come in and pay you an exorbitant amount of money because we
Okay.
have to stay in business and we have to be profitable.
Right.
But we'll pay you the most that is reasonable for that quality of coffee or that product. But more importantly, we'll be consistent. We'll help you through the process of getting your financing together and doing everything. We'll just show up, buy, and leave. So I think that's also a very critical thing. And yeah, it's not linear. It's a little bit of a choppy growth curve, but it's been a growth curve despite that. And to the point where in some countries where we didn't find a co-op, we'd find a family farm that was just kind of coming up and struggling. And then we work with them to create a co-op around them. So in Guatemala and Colombia, we found family farms that were just small and now they're buying from 40, 50 neighbors. And all of a sudden the community's now become a cooperative. And that's through our support of growth and buying at scale.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. It's not instant gratification, like you're saying. It's the little compounding things and the delayed gratification, if you will, is seeing the benefits of working with, especially when crops and crop seasons, you honestly don't know, and you can't judge the weather about that or any of the environment on it.
Yeah, and frankly, our industry changes. Our industry loves to create hot new things and get people excited and then let them down. And I think we've had to live through those with our producers. And I think they see that the steady climb makes the most sense. I've been doing this for 25 years, so we've accumulated a lot of small wins, and I think producers see that too.
Yeah. Now, I know in your bio you have a family. Does your family also work in the coffee industry with you, or are they off doing their things like being like schooling and or whatnot?
I mean, my kids, one daughter's finishing her studies. My son's in high school. I have a baby who's just being a baby, and then my wife used to run the sourcing. She's from Costa Rica,
Okay.
and she used to manage all the relationships. Like I said, she was the one everybody liked. I'm the one they called when they needed a contract. Uh, so they still reach out to her. It's funny. They still reach out to her. I hear stories where like farmers have pictures of her in the farm in their house, and she's the likable one. I'm kind of the let's get the business one. So yeah, and look, I have no expectation of my son to work in the business, but I'm trying to teach him the principles and values, and more importantly, the premise of building a sound business, which I think, I mentioned probably three things that have made me successful. I think
Mhm.
having a very strong financial mind and background and understanding the concept of building a model before you just run out and try to create something fun. Um, so I think having him see that is very important.
And also showing them uh from what you're talking about and what we're actually talking about is how actually money works as a
Right.
tool and not the end game that everybody wants and has in a bank somewhere that you're building it, you have your purpose, you have a plan, and you're executing it. from
Exactly.
what we're talking about.
And as you grow a business, you realize that you're creating value, and you're creating value for others sometimes, and sometimes you can capture some of that value back. And at the end of the day, once you're in business 25 years, you realize that the real money's made by financing certain parts of different
Mhm.
things. And if you can become the financer, then you can participate in that as well. So that's something I've done very intelligently, which is invest in the right parts of the business, invest in, I almost joke that my org is almost my own hedge fund. I always have to
Right.
find the opportunity in the moment. We're getting big into real estate now, and that was kind of, we wanted to buy our own building. We built it. Everybody wanted to rent it. We're like, let's rent it. We're making a ton of money in this building. It's appreciated 3x. Let's do it again. And now we're creating value for the business and having longevity. And so it's things
Right.
like that that I think are very important, of understanding that a business is not just buy at X and sell at Y. There's so many more opportunities within
Mhm.
that process to make money and to diversify within that reality as well.
No, absolutely. And your income stream, the multiple income streams that you're generating over it, is you're generating your generational wealth. You're also solving problems as well. Housing, or making sure that the farmers actually still have a job and have a farm to actually make their money. So you're solving a lot of different aspects to problems that are everywhere in your countries
Yeah.
that you're working with.
And frankly, it keeps me busy and it's fun. I like challenges and I like being creative. And look, you get one life, you get one opportunity. And, for me to just build a great coffee business is nice, but to make an impact in doing so, to build generational wealth, to help my team achieve things financially that they couldn't have achieved elsewhere. All those things. That's what motivates me and keeps me busy. So, I think the game of business is a very fun game to play if you know how to really move the pieces well, because it's complex at the same time.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with you. It is very complex, and you make that one wrong move, that's when a lot of people give up and fold in. But even when you make that wrong move, it's still an opportunity to do better.
Yeah, trust me, I've done a lot of things that people would categorize as a mistake, but you learn from it, and you do this good stuff more, you do the bad stuff less. It's
Ah.
pretty simple.
Oh,
You still
I
have to have an appetite for risk. I think that's a big thing. Probably number three for me, of like the top things, is like, I'm not scared of anything, because I believe in myself. I believe in my vision. I believe in my ability to execute. If I see something that I think I can make happen, even if everyone tells me it's too big or too much, I have no fear. And my team has adopted that, and I have a very tight, small team that now lives by that, which is, we're not afraid of anything. If we're put it into a challenge, or we create a situation that feels like a reach, we'll figure it out. I'm not worried
okay.
about it.
Now see, now that you brought another thing that a lot of key people that have been on the show is, you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people that want to succeed as much as you do. And you got rid of the naysayers, and you're still booming.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, the beauty is you have people who may be like-minded but operate differently. My company COO and president, Erin, is a planner, and she likes to, I come in like a bull in a china shop, and it's just, but she's learned to, like, okay, things tend to work out, so let me just ride out the process and give it some order, right? Let me give Martin's crazy idea a little order. Let me work with him. If he believes in this, I got to close my eyes and jump. And I think when they close their eyes and jump enough and land, they realize, okay, I can trust them. And I tell my team all the time, my job is not to be your friend, you don't even have to like me. Do you trust me, and do you believe in me? That's all I need. You believe in me and you trust me, good. Great, I want to be friendly and everything, but like, trust and believing that I can do what I say I'm going to do, that's all that matters.
That they're actually hiring you, so to speak, to do a job, and you need to perform your job.
Exactly. And I see it that way. I work for them. I work for their future. I work to make sure their kids can eat and they can put a roof over their head and they can plan for their kids' college. That's my job. So I don't take it lightly.
No, not a, and you shouldn't. Well, I agree that this is your. They're not just chess pieces to you, because you are actually part of the culture. You are part of the culture, so you understand, and you understand what it needs to have them have some success as well.
Exactly. Yeah. everybody contributes, and then it all works out.
You're right. Now, out of all the products that you have that you are offering out to people worldwide, what's your favorite product that you manufacture?
I mean, we have a coffee called Cafe Cubano, which
Okay.
is a Cuban coffee. And I think it's my favorite in the fact that, you know, one of the things about my blends is that they all have some history to them, and that history is personal to me. The Cafe Cubano was a product I created over 23 years ago as kind of an homage to my time in Miami in Little Havana, where my dad would sit around with the Cubans, and you know, they'd left their country, we left our country. I was a tiny kid, but I just thought it was so cool. These guys just sitting around drinking coffee, playing dominoes. Um, and I developed that as a way to like just kind of keep my roots connected into this business. And the beauty is it's taken off. It's by far number one seller in most of the retailers we sell it in. So I think emotionally it has a lot of meaning to me. And it's also a kind of a sense of accomplishment that it's become such a big seller. So I would say the Cafe Cubano would be up there. And then we have one called Muy Macho, which is more of a fun, like he's like a Mexican luchador. But again, it's got a personal story to it. When I was living in Nicaragua during the revolution, we didn't go to school for a year. I was a little kid, and I lived under so much stress that I created a fictitious character called Muy Macho who would like protect everybody. And it was like, I'm sure a therapist would have a field day with that, but I brought it to life in the coffee, and it's part of me. So it means a lot, you know. So I think having these things that mean a lot really are more like sentimental to me. So those are kind of the top two coffees I would say that mean the most to me. And then the Chia has been a program that we started to help farmers when the coffee rust was killing their crops. They literally couldn't produce coffee. We planted Chia alternatively, very quickly, very rushed. Thank God for Costco, who came in and said, we'll buy whatever you grow. This is in 2012, 2013. Today we'll do about 7 million pounds of Chia because of the program. And of course, now it's expanded from Nicaragua to Mexico and Bolivia and different countries. So I think the Chia has a big kind of sentimental value to me because it's been impactful. It's been very impactful. I really think we've changed a lot of lives and communities through the Chia.
That's impressive, especially with everybody being health centric and whatnot. Chia is one of the top things that you actually want to put in your diet, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's remarkable. Quickly, we only have a few minutes left. We're getting close to the end of the show already. This is crazy. Where do you see the organization going from here? You know, what's your next big tackle, or what mountain? Literally, what mountain are you going to climb next?
You know, I think my climbing mountain days are behind me because I'm 50. I'm climbing hills. So I think for me right now, it's about we're growing really, really nicely with the secondary products, the coffee, like I said, Chia with
Right.
beans. I want to see more coffee presence, but I'm also very selective. We're not out there begging for business. I don't have salespeople. I like to I'd like to align with more big retailers for private label manufacturing because I want house brands to have the values and the quality that we bring that nobody else is bringing to them. And frankly, I want to see us become massive players in the industrial real estate game because that is just a personal challenge to me and my team. And I think as a Latino, I've yet to see somebody I can look at and say, wow, this guy immigrated and, you know, he has 500,000 square feet of industrial space. So for me, I think that's a personal accomplishment for my kids and, you know, the generations that I leave behind. So that's a big one for me.
Okay. Wow, those are. I don't think that's such a small hill that you think it is, especially
No, it's
getting in that.
not, but I've climbed some mountains, man. I've climbed some mountains.
Okay, well, at least. Well, do you find that challenging yourself still keeps it exciting for you?
If I don't challenge myself, I get depressed and bored.
Okay.
I mean, literally, I have to have a challenge. And young me used to create problems to have challenges. You know, so mature me now knows that opportunities and challenges makes better.
Uh,
So I'm doing that now, and I need the challenges. I love problem solving and creating and seeing kind of the zig and zag that it takes to get from point A to point B. I like that.
okay. I'm with you on the earlier days. I used to break things so I know how to fix them.
Exactly.
instead of reading a book on how to fix. I'm like, oh, look, we're just gonna move this over here and see what happens. Like, oh, it's really broken. Then put it back.
Exactly.
So okay, well that is completely amazing. We have, oh, was it 4 or 5 minutes left? Okay, this is I can't believe how fast the time has gone with you, Martin. You know, and learning about exactly what you're doing down in Latin America, in those countries, and honestly, the coffee industry in general. So, are your coffees actually worldwide, or is it just regional, like in the northwest and southwest?
So our roastery is based in Maryland, in Rockville, Maryland, and we sell nationally. So we're
Okay.
nationally, through different retailers. I mean, Costco, Amazon, Whole Foods, different grocers, our own website, myorgacoffee.com. We also have some clients with presence in Canada and Europe that we ship to.
Okay.
So we technically are international. But frankly, the US is such a big market that I'm not one of these guys looking to penetrate the European or Asian market. I'm very happy growing in the US, and I think there's tremendous opportunity there for us.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody has at least 1 to 2 cups. 90% of people in America have at least 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah.
And it's constantly growing. The fan base is not getting any shorter, any smaller, I should say.
Yeah, there's definitely a big fan base. There's a lot of competition. I think that's going to start changing as, cost of money goes up and access to money goes down. So I think we're in a good spot to continue to grow.
I have two final questions to wrap up the show. Is, do you feel that coffee is a necessity or a luxury?
I mean, I guess anything that isn't necessary to keep you alive is a luxury. Um, Although if you think about it, when I went to Nicaragua after Hurricane Mitch, and we raised a lot of money, and I was pretty impressed to see that the survival kits or whatever they call it
Mhm.
after that they would give a family
Right.
included rice, beans, sugar, coffee. I think a lot of it's because it keeps you feeling full, so it just you don't have to eat so much. I definitely think it's a luxury. I mean, I can do without it. I just don't want to. Uh,
Okay.
so for me, it is my luxury of the day. I literally go to bed excited for the next morning because I'll roast my own coffee here, and sometimes I'll do something different and unique, and I'm looking forward to wake up to it. So it's definitely a luxury, but it's an affordable luxury. And I think that my job and my vision is to keep it affordable, where others are trying to make it a little bit unreachable.
And just to separate people away who can afford it and who can't. Not a fan
Yeah,
of that myself.
no.
Uh, and my last question, real quick, knowing the knowledge you have now, if you could talk to your younger self, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Be patient.
Okay.
I think I wanted, like most young people, I really, at one point I had 14 shops with my name on them, and it was a disaster, but my ego liked it. I was in, 26, 27. I had all these
Hmm.
shops. People knew my name when I paid with a credit card in the DC area. They recognized me and it became a problem because they were a lot to manage. They held back my growth.
Okay.
So I think, but unfortunately, we all learn from our mistakes and not from advice. And I guess the real advice I'd give myself is enjoy it because you're going to make mistakes and you're
Okay.
going to, zig when you should have zagged. But I think just enjoy the process.
Oh, fantastic. Martin, thank you for being on the show. If any of the guests out there watching now or listening now or watching now or in the future want to get a hold of you or learn more about your company or get your products, where can they find you?
It's Mayorga Coffee. That's Mayorga Coffee. You can find us on Instagram there, mayorgacoffee.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Martin Mayorga. And yeah, you can find us through all the socials and online.
Awesome. Well, Martin, I really appreciate it. And I thank you for your time and being here on the show with us.
Appreciate you inviting me and having me on.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, that is this week's show about from Martin and coffee and the coffee industry and what he's doing with it and with him and his company is doing with it. Next week is going to be a super special program as well as like all of ours is next week we're going to get a little political. I have 2024 presidential candidate Barack Zilberberg going to be on the show. So we're going to talk about him, why he wants to run for president, where he's coming from, and what he thinks he can actually help to do in the upcoming election. So until then, it is still nice outside. It's very warm. Please watch out for fires. Some places are in a drought, so be mindful of that and enjoy the outside for now. Until next time, have a great week.
All clear. Great show today.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna go and clear the lines for the next show. Hope you two have a great rest of your day.
All right,
You
it's good
too.
talking
Thanks for
with you.
everything.
Thank you.
Take care.
Martin, thank you once again. Honestly, is there anything? This is still recording. I will get you all the links for this. This is actually going to be on YouTube.
Okay.
So I'm record. Is there anything that we didn't cover in the hour-long show that you would like to cover now?
I think we did a good job. I think, I think for me, the biggest thing to try to make sure I express is that, we're not a coffee company that was started because there was money in coffee, which is, I think, 95% of the startups of coffee world in the last, 20 years. So, I think the meaning behind what we do and the reality, I think at this age in my life, I want people to really understand the truth of what's going on in coffee and not just believe because someone puts it on the marketing that they're saving lives or whatever it might be, that it's really happening, because it actually hurts more than helps.
Just to boost the that company's ratings like 1 or 2% to get an extra sale. I see where you're coming from with that. No, but it actually, from talking with you and reading all about your company, the website and whatnot, you're really changing things. As some probably seem a little bit slower than others, but the changes, you're doing the change.
Yeah, no, we feel good about our impact. I mean, we've had a big impact, and for us, I'd like to see more people like us. I'd like to see more companies like us. I'm not one of these people that wants to think that they're going to do it alone. And look, it's a 200-year-old issue that's affected millions of people in a lot of countries in Latin America, Africa, Asia. I think people just need to understand, what we consume and what we spend money on is a vote for practices, decisions, and we have to try to make a vote for the right thing if we truly care about them, because right now the voice says that people care about things. So I just want to see that that's really true, but it's also hard because a lot of companies can outwardly just say things that aren't true, and the American consumer believes that there's some magical government agency that would police that, and it's not true.
No,
that's the hard part.
And honestly, you brought up a very valid point, is we shouldn't have to rely on those policings. Honestly, it's honestly, we're adults, even the children that are pre-adults. It comes back to us and what we're taught as values and whatnot, and where to spend our money and who to actually support. That's been lost a lot of places.
And I think what's happened in coffee that really bugs me is now there's this narrative of just pay more so we can help farmers. But a lot of these companies that say pay more don't even understand their own supply chain. So they're paying more to exporters and, multi-billion-dollar companies and for themselves. None of it's going to the farmers. So this premise that if it's expensive, it's good. If it's expensive, it's doing the right thing. That's not true. And one of the things that I really critique the industry for is it's a very misguided thing to blame consumers for the problems created by our industry and saying, you pay for this now. It was this industry screwed this up. Now you go pay for it. No, we have to pay for it. I operate on a 7 to 9% net income. My competitors love a 15 to 20% margin or net income. Okay. I'm taking a haircut so that I can do the right thing for everybody involved. The industry doesn't understand that.
No, and they don't see that all, because all they're seeing is the little cup in their hand, the little logo. Say, oh, I can get this whenever I want, type of thing. But I agree with you. I'm still on that philosophy. Is I like to understand where it comes from, not so much to what kind of dirt's in it, or I know certain regions and certain coffee beans and whatnot, just like chocolate and everything else in the world, there's different flavors, and the ratio that you have to have, like when you're making your blend coffees, you have to have that ratio right to be consistent.
Exactly. Yep. And we have people that do all that stuff. That's the stuff that's like you have to do to be successful. Right. My goal is for me to be the voice and to make the impact.
And you're doing a fantastic job with it. This is I'm not sure how many interviews or shows you've done before, but this is worldwide and it will be on all your streaming services. So I'll share the links so you can promote it however you see fit, and I'll make sure that you get the links to the YouTube so you can promote it as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
I'm glad I could help. Is there anything